So, typical DPW review, Joe, you usually put out a letter or a summary letter at some point, correct?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so there'll be, I'm actually going to read off of that today. I didn't have it done, but I wanted to get all the meat and potatoes of it out to you guys.
Right.
So
when you, just one first question, when you sent it, you didn't have all the numbers, you were at the 4.0 for an increase.
Yep, so on the tax side, I don't expect anything to change.
Yep.
As relates to the enterprises, we're waiting for the GIC to make their vote on whatever the rates were, which I think Kevin sewed up earlier this week. So for both the water enterprise and sewer enterprise, might be a slight change in that. And then depending on how that changed, there's another line in there, it's called admin expense.
Yeah.
Kevin said that might fluctuate too. I had everything else. I had Medicare and all of that stuff. MDRA was a little later than I thought, but you guys had that, so preliminary assessments are in there. Yeah, I was just waiting for those last two things from them.
Okay.
I think I have them highlighted and read through just to call them out.
And that shouldn't be too significant materially.
No, I don't think so. 25,000. It depends on what the rates go to with the plans and then what the individual members are doing. But it shouldn't be anything. I don't expect either one of those two enterprises to jump.
Okay.
I'd be surprised if it did. I'll put it that way.
Yep. All right, I don't know if anybody has any initial questions. Joe, run through.
So I probably should have explained that. So this is kind of set up in three funding sources. So there's what tax, the rate, and then what. Trash is its own thing that you guys got, so that's a warrant article. It sits. So is baked into. All right, you want to start with warrant articles, or we just roll through?
Yeah, the warrants are in the front, right?
Just because they're quick. We don't have a heck of a lot, so consciously, we have a ton of work going on, and with ARPA and all the other stuff, we have even more work going on. So I'm trying to make sure that we're focusing on that and kind of slowing the pace to the point where it's manageable. So eminent domain is our annual. It's really just an insurance article. Things like that. It's the best price warrant article there is at $1. So that one's in there. That's basically an automatic every year. I can tell you, I don't think that we've ever done anything like that, at least in my tenure here, where it's been contentious. I think you might have to go back to when the town acquired Lonnie Island to get some spirited discussion related to that world. But anyway, there's the fail-safe. It makes us feel happy, and I know it probably calms blood pressure down. So.
Was there significant dollars associated with eminent domain back in the? I
don't know. I wasn't old enough or close enough to any of this to really appreciate what was going on.
I'm pretty sure this just allows you the legal right structure to do that type of
the ability to. So if we got into
it's generally, always $1, right?
Yeah, if we got into situations, so sometimes like a good example is like up by where Dennis is. I can think of an easement that we had to take through some property. We were able to work with the abutters and do that. This gives us the mechanism to do that. If there was anything, like if, God forbid, we needed to do something where it took some serious dough to accomplish that, I mean, that would be a town council thing called level. Probably town meeting, too. We wouldn't be able to do it. But this is, small stuff like if for some reason we were doing road work, we need to realign the roadway a little bit. Sometimes weird things come up. It just allows us the ability to. Rather than have to pause and wait and start the whole process again, this is just kind of a blanket. Yeah, right. Yeah, if it was real significant, it would be a broader discussion for sure. So that one's that. Related to trash, so this covers trash, recycling, and disposal. We're up a little bit as what I sent you in the summary there. I think it nets out to just about 4%. Really, the driver in this is our annual disposal contract increases, collection contracts for both recycling and refuse increases, And then the only other thing in this is really just driven off personal services, so like opening the Hart Street, whatever our labor groups phases tend to work out to be, that goes up a couple of years ago. You know, now that place is open starting April 1st, every Saturday, every other Sunday. And then around November, it gets a little weird with the holidays, so we sprinkle in a couple extra days there. But that's pretty much status quo, and anything that's increased with that is just driven off of, I'd say, holistically, like comparatively, like throughout Massachusetts, I feel that Wakefield's in a good spot with this right now. Although you probably will hear me kind of sound like a broken record as time goes on. Come the end of 2025, we will be up to renegotiate our disposal contract. So that's the third tier of trash. So when we bring it to the incinerator, there's a price per ton. That's coming up. Both the collection contracts are coming up in 2027. One of the things that we are expecting to change with that, so right now we collect refuse, whatever the tonnage is that gets weighed out on the scales, we get billed at the incinerator. When we collect recycling, it goes to, it was JRM, now it's Republic because they got bought out, and it is what it is. So that's a lump sum. It's $400,000, $519 to do that, and that's it.
Regardless of the weight.
Exactly. What's going to happen, and it's happening everywhere, there's going to be two things. There's going to be a push, really the vendors that are in that world right now, there's three really large ones, like global companies. They want everything to go automated. So they want, the toters, which we're fortunate to have on the trash side, to eventually become automated, but they also want to do that in recycling. And the other thing that we're going to see is there will be some sort of per ton cost to recycle that, handle that, sort it, what have you. I can tell you personally, I have a real problem with that when they talk about that. I'm not exactly the right word to say is, but I'm not exactly sold on the methodology that all of them use to determine what the contamination rate and different things is, within the stuff that we bring them. I feel like it's a little arbitrary, so we have to start working on that. But I would expect at that point, probably we're about a year and a half out. I will keep saying conversations like this as we move forward every time I get the chance to. But about a year and a half out, we have to make a decision. We'll have a better idea of, what the picture is that's in front of us, and then we'll have to, so that, we're planning for that. Should it continue the way it is, or however we need.
So the trash, you're saying 2027 across the board for the automated component, then are they pushing for the automated component for trash now?
They will. I don't think they have the vehicles, the fleet, the vehicles and stuff like that.
We use don't have the fleet yet.
Yeah.
I mean, you see it in a lot of towns with the automatic arms.
Yeah, and we're set up to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
We ended up making, so when Russell Disposal left, they were doing it that way. It ended up changing because of the time. Russell was getting out of the business. We went out to RFP. JRM came in, and they were substantially cheaper than everybody else. And their means and methods of collecting it was old school. Right. There were two people in the back. We called them shakers. They threw it in. So it became a dollars decision at that point. But you'll see, I know Reading went through this in a couple other places. You won't see anybody entertaining anything that's not the option to be automated going forward. So that'll probably involve, so if that is definitely happening on the recycling front, I know grants and different things. We'll have to buy the barrels, and you're probably talking $1,000 to do that. So there's some grants and stuff that Ann and I will probably try to do early. So works the way that I think it will right now. I'd like to try to get a grant to get the barrels out in advance of the works and the new ones. But there could be some expenses to that,
So for the fee for recycle, is it, you anticipate that the doing it by tonnage is going to significantly increase, or?
Yeah, I'll say significant because right now the fee is $0, and
well, it's the what we get charged a flat fee, is that what you said?
That's what it is. So that's the
Okay.
price to drive around every other week and collect it. And that includes what they process it and
Got it.
that.
Okay.
What'll end up happening is there'll be that fee to drive around and collect it. And then they'll also, what they will ask for, and we'll have to negotiate all of this. So what we anticipate them asking for is then be something that says, Wakefield's pretty steady on what our tonnages is. Like, trash is pretty predictable. We have about 7,200. Somewhere between like 2,100 and 2,200 tons of recycling. So then they'll probably be, what they'll say is for that 2,000 tons, let's say, $60 a ton for them to handle it, process it, bail it, do whatever they do. That's what we anticipate. So 2,000 times $60, just to throw a round number at it.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Hopefully we can avoid it, but I mean, we're just being realistic.
Right. That's the trend, and there's no way to avoid it, right?
Yeah, I think if they had the druthers, they'd do it now. But we're inked up for a little while longer, and we're going to ride that as long as we can.
Yeah.
So
You get a 5% increase on the refuge, collection, right? I did the math. Refuge yard, waste, curbside collection.
Yeah.
Overall, you get 3.8. Actual.
all that's contractual.
Yeah.
Yeah, all that is. So one of the things we did, if you remember, cycling and refuse used to be two separate things. And we renegotiated the trash contract. We combined them so everything ends up. It used to be kind of a headache from our standpoint because it ended in the middle of the fiscal year. So now it lines up with it. In doing that, we were able to actually cut the pre-existing contract list down a little bit and save some money. But all that is contractual. If you want the next 2 years, I can give those to you too.
It's contractual, so it's going up.
Didn't know if maybe like Dan would probably want it for some of his long.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt. You get 3.6 overall, so just.
That's everything basically in that world.
Yep.
Another thing on that list, I know that we talked about last year, so the fueling island that the town operates is in the last year of the warranty for the tanks, so they're 30 years old, and they're in good shape, decent shape, but they're at the end of a 30-year life period that the manufacturer will warranty for it, so we're into doing some of the due diligence. We thought we would probably be at this point with you coming back and saying that we're going to replace it in kind, in place. Looked at some other possibilities of moving it around.
And this is in the yard at North End.
Correct. So one of the things we have to contend with there is at some point in time, there was some sort of oil release or something like that. So we know that if we have to dig through it, there's some gross stuff underground that's going to have to be. To avoid that, we looked at the possibility of moving these to Nahant Street. We think there's 3 spots there we can do it and hopefully avoid going into some of the nasty stuff in the ground.
So this is like when you go into Nahant Street, to right, the yard waste?
Yeah.
And then this would be like kind of straight ahead to the left?
Right now, it's smack dab in the middle of our parking lot on North Ave.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
It's a new place for now.
yeah, to do that, to do it in kind where it exists now, we've seen estimates that could cost them. It's been discussed and advised that if we, not only do we save trip generation right next to the middle school and the congested area, but then we can also avoid digging through some of that nasty. Quite costly savings there. So what we need to do to be able to do that is I need to design something so that we can hold up the tanks themselves. So it can, if we can move them. So we warrant article for $150,000 to do all the geotech work and design for these things. At some point in time, either at fall town meeting or this time, we'll have a rock solid replacement cost. All trying to get that, moved.
They're going to be underground tanks again?
No, they'll be above ground. What will end up happening is instead of They're above ground now, but what happens is they go from above ground and then the piping goes underneath the ground, into a sump, and then it comes back up from underground into the, gas dispensers. Now they're all one unit, so it's a big tank and everything's built into the side of it. God forbid there's a problem down the future, you can literally just disconnect the electrical, hook it with a crane, pull it out of the way, drop a new one right in. So we basically set up like, a kit. So if there's ever a problem, you take it apart out, you put it. Now it's a little bit more involved because you can't see it. Yeah, and then last but not least, we are going to present for borrowing to do some water main work. So anybody that's taken a ride around the lake, especially if you're heading from Salem Street to Lowell Street, the water main in there is probably broken in the last year about 5 times. Basically, at this point, priority numero uno for us to replace, but unfortunately, it's going to require some capital. So we have that water main identified, Aborn Ave identified, Emerson Street, and there's a piece of Gould in the intersection we have to do. And depending what budget allows, we have a capital plan for all this stuff, which attacks 2 things. So anywhere where we have pressure problems in town, or if when we're doing hydrant flow tests for fire flow capacity, if we're lower beyond the point that we're not comfortable, we don't have anything related to a violation that we're aware of. But, if we think we should be at 80 pounds of pressure, look into the age of the pipes and things like that. Upgrade decisions based on that. And then the other thing is materials. So like a lot of other stuff out there, we're just in the period of time where stuff that was put in the 30s and 40s is starting to age out, and it's time. So we've been attacking cast iron that's out in our system. So cast iron rusts, it gets tuberculated, which is basically like your arteries, it clogs, reduces, available pressure, it could lead to some rusty water and things like that. So we're working through all that to move it out of that. And we have it sequenced in a way where, at least with Emerson Street, so Emerson Street, Cedar Street, that little block there is a good example. Will all be done. We'll be able to line the sewer, we'll be able to replace the water main, and then we're coming in, we're going to pave the road and the sidewalks. So that's the final piece to that whole coordinated dance. So this will keep us moving on that, for quite a while.
So does that 5 million include the whole, like the?
It includes everywhere that I mentioned, and then no, it'll include patching. The paving is will be a separate thing.
Okay.
This includes all the underground work for all the water main, hydrants, different valving, all the appurtenances we need for that. There are a couple other places I know that we'd like to get to. I know we need to put a water main in Hot Street. I don't know. I'm kind of waiting to see what the deal is with the 40B projects and what might be. So that could be something that we might look to do. We might not. Certainly we can't be bumping up into the high school project that's just going on. So we kind of have to make sure that time all that right. Will set us up so that we can keep advancing that. We don't have to defer anything that's going to cost. That's about it on the warrant article end.
Sure. Questions?
You all right, Dennis?
Next?
Yeah, I'm okay.
All right, just checking.
I'm in broken up every now and then, but that's okay. I'm catching it.
Okay. All right, so I'll take a slow roll through the budget. I'll just start on tax. Stop, interrupt me, feel free, whatever you're going to do. I'll keep this not so much 10,000 feet, a little high, but I think I covered all the details, at least anything that's an increase or a change. So personal services, overall, on the tax side is up $219,000 and change. Most of this is all driven off of contractual increases with our unions, 3 unions. The one difference in this, and I actually feel really, not guilty is not the word, but I know Jim's position on FTEs, but we are proposing a new one in buildings. And what this will be is second shift. And the reasoning for this is with the expansion to the police station, 911 Albion Street getting busier from rentals, Civic Center, believe it or not, basically has somebody in there using the space from 8 a.m. till 11 o'clock at night. And then with the bathrooms that are eventually coming to Vets Field, we're a little exposed in the evenings. So I'll use the bathrooms as the example. That was one of the, the big drivers behind this. When we looked into, so what'll end up happening with it is our field staff will be there in the morning to service that, and then because of the nature of what it is, we feel like we'll have to. What else might come? When we started to get the cost for some of that, we were over $50,000. So looking at that and looking at what to bring in, some of the custodial services, and it just kind of made sense because we're going to allocate that type of money to one thing. Bring in somebody that can do everything. Now we have overlap, have the capacity to not only do that, but get some other things done. Offices aren't open or occupied. So included that into this. The other thing, so overtime throughout all the tax levy stuff is largely driven up of the labor pieces, the contractual stuff that I mentioned earlier. There is a little bit of an uptick that's above board in buildings, and what that is so Sunday is the only day of the week we will have to have somebody that's not working shift come in and service bathroom potentially. So that number is prorated in there to start visiting that every Sunday from I think it's December 1st at the end of the year. We don't anticipate that being constructed till sometime. That's where we are with that. And then the only thing of note that I had in there, we'll see an increase in cost in the highway division budget and police details. This is something we actually cut it. It used to be funded at $50,000 pre-pandemic. We cut it. We never put it back to pre-pandemic level. It's no secret that everything's super busy out there. So we've run into a couple situations where, we're getting a little tight, especially with some of these new town day festivals and whatnot. So we're just bringing that back up to where it was historically. So do you want to stop here, or do you want to go into purchase and services? I can do whatever.
Anybody else? I have just a few questions.
I got a couple of questions.
Dennis?
Me first? Okay.
Yep.
On Park and Forestry, this posted position, is that a retirement or what? On the board?
MEO laborer.
That would we actually had an employee leave us and take employment elsewhere, which created a vacancy that started the promotion process. So that was actually triggered through that.
Yeah, but do we need that person now or under Park?
Yeah, I mean, I would think so. I mean, Dennis is pretty much straight out all the time. He'd probably come in and tell you he could use more. I think if you were to take it away, it'd actually be reducing, his labor force.
Well, I know you're having problems trying to recruit people. That's why I'm wondering if we can just eliminate it. You got money for temporary help, and it's basically Park and Forestry is basically a summer issue. I didn't know if you could do it with, seeing it's a laborer's position, whether you can do it as a seasonal employee and not have to pay the benefit. That's that one. And the second custodian, I'm still not totally convinced that you need it for, supposedly a second shift. I mean, no one takes care of the other bathrooms for the playgrounds at night. Why is this one flagged out? Because it's an area for people to walk and stuff and use it. I'm concerned we're gonna set a precedent that we're gonna have to have them all for
Too many
the,
questions, too much dialogue.
for the playground. And, I think we ought to look at all the toilets, you know, we get caught saying that we should have them for every place.
Hear me, Dave?
And that's it for what I get for, you know, so far with the labor pool. Lost you guys.
You hear us, Dennis?
Yeah, I got you now, yeah.
Sorry about that. We dropped the audio. I have no idea why.
So we answered the first question, and then you talked for quite a while. We didn't hear any of it, sorry.
Oh, I'm talking about the second shift custodian. I'm not
Yeah.
keeping it unless there's more investigation about this new Veterans Field coming online, that it's not gonna open a Pandora's box to maintain all our toilet facilities at all the other parks. Which we don't do now. We leave it up to, at Molten, the ball teams to police their own, open them and close them. And I assume we do that at the other places. So I think vets should be the same way, that the softball group, who's gonna basically use it at night, are responsible to open it and close it. Or we're gonna get ourselves into a problem with the other fields, I think. So, that's just my opinion at this point. Thank you.
Is the proposed new one open 24/7, do you know?
I don't think, so that has not been vetted out at the
Yeah.
council level. I would imagine it'll be like the door here. It'll be set on a timer,
Oh, yeah,
so I'd
yeah.
imagine it'll be open, somewhere between 6 and 8 a.m., call it 7,
Yeah.
and then it'll probably close at dusk, I would think. I don't know, it hasn't been worked out completely logistically, like if softball's running there late, but no, I wouldn't imagine it being overnight. I think at that point in time, there's not too many people walking around, probably asking for more trouble at that point. Yeah, I mean, it'll be cambered and everything like that. It'll be rock solid secure, but I would think that it would be a timed situation where it would default to open at 7 and it would default to close at 8. It would be seasonal, I would think, sometime between April and probably the end of November, or whenever weather allows us, because we have to pump whatever goes down the drain. We'll have to pump up to the street, so we're gonna have to take it down.
You all set, Dennis?
Yep,
Right now, it's just like porta potties, right?
Mhm.
That end up getting up there for like major,
Yeah.
or even just during the summer.
So there are some that exist on Spalding Street. There's a few that exist across from the playground now, and then there's one over by where the farmers market sea container is. That thing, it's basically there all year long. So we'll go from essentially paying Depot, I think it is, the vendor, to come out days and service that. We'll end up taking some of that on. So supplies and things that we feel like we don't need to budget for it yet, because we save here, apply it to what we're doing. We'll just need to have, And then on that time, we'll end up, this person will end up sharing, so we'll end up having a second shift, night shift, custodian. That building is here, on 24/7. And then, the only other thing that, you know, this would accomplish too is, so now there's someone generally here, there's someone generally at the Civic Center, overnight. If one of the two of them are absent, we backfill with overtime. Now at least we'll have to go 2 staff down before we have to backfill with overtime, so we can run short. If we have 3, we can run short with 2. Now we have 2, we kind of can't run short with 1. So it'll give us a little bit more flexibility and hopefully at least control it a little bit.
Actually, it's way to the question, if you don't mind. So where you have that proposed position, the overtime kind of rolled, and I think you said some of the increase in the overtime would be because of the control increases, but it's still going up. So would there be any savings in the overtime, or is that already factored into what you rolled forward?
The only thing different than the amount of overtime hours we budget for didn't change. You know, salaries bumped up, so that dollar figure increased a little bit.
Sure.
The only thing in building specifically that changed, we had to include some time, because Sunday is the only time we don't have anybody on shift here. So we had to include time for a staff member to go there every Sunday.
That's the increase
That's
there.
the increase for that, yeah.
Okay.
And this number that's baked into this is prorated to start doing that in September.
Okay.
All right, so one of my questions was salaries. Is the number of double-digit salary increases across, just in the DPW and water and sewer I looked at as well. So the safety guy person was new X number of years ago, 3, 4 years ago. Being classified as a manager with a increase. Were they a manager last time?
They were, and so that's one of the things I figured we'd be talking about. So that,
You know, 0 to $23,000 increase.
budget to budget, yeah, that's how that presents.
Yeah.
So what ended up happening is after we set the budget last year, when this person was put into this position, there was a bunch of benchmarks that they needed to meet, which triggered salary increases. Unfortunately, last year we set the budget, we went through FinCom and town meeting, and then this person attained some of the things they needed to, which triggered increases after the fact that we didn't have in the fiscal 24 numbers, which skews this and makes it present much more significantly than it actually was.
What would you say it is?
Probably 6. I can give you the exact number.
Yeah, I mean, that would
In
be
the
helpful.
double pane like this, I can't get it up, but I have
Yeah.
that exact number.
I mean, you're going to need to explain that, I'm sure.
Yeah, so-
at the meeting, it's a.
I think, so last year we had it proposed at 106, but that didn't end up being the fiscal 24.
Okay.
So,
And that was like certifications or training or something to that effect?
yeah, so when I got promoted, we made some things contingencies. So this person actually, I believe I'm the only person in town that's certified public purchasing official. We've conditioned this person to get that too. So there's 2 of us here that can do that. He hit that. Some of it is timing because you have to go through the IG's office to get their classes and do it. Unfortunately, hit it and I couldn't time it right. There's another one that you'll see. I'm going to be a little bit vague about this because it's not completely done, but if you're looking in the budget book at line 308, in engineering, actually have a position reclass that we're working through here. That's planning for that.
But he or she's not a senior civil right now?
No.
Yeah.
But we anticipate that will be bumped up between now and then. There's some exams.
Yeah.
I'll mention it when we talk about their training line. We have 2 employees right now going through the exam process, get their PE stamps, so there's preparation of that, because again, when you hit certain thresholds and different things, it triggers salary component, right? So you gotta earn your way up, and they're right at the threshold of that, and that's gonna become.
These are, contractual?
Yes.
All right, I think,
For the individual that you mentioned as well, it would show on here that the run rate was higher than.
No, because what this is gonna show you, what this will show you is, 24.
the 24 rate was, 105,950 in
So what ended up happening after,
So you can see that the first, like, 13. Like, if you were to extrapolate.
oh, the year,
Run.
the current year.
The current year, you'd be able to see that individual on pace to get,
The salary,
get a higher.
yeah, the salary through 13 weeks theoretically be higher.
So that's when we do actuals, right, for the current year? That's next year, right?
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah.
Yeah. So when
That-
when Kevin,
yeah, no, it is.
when Kevin presents his numbers, that's where it
Yeah,
works
yeah,
out, yeah.
This is next.
these two, columns are next year.
Yeah.
So this cell right here, is what we went with, we thought what the budget was gonna be, and ended up not being the case. More than we had asked for. Some of those things.
Yeah,
that
so
were-
his actual base is higher than that. If you can just send that number to us. that'd be
Yeah,
helpful.
absolutely.
Pretty good. There was one,
Sorry, I know that doesn't always, present the most transparent the way that it's budget year to year, but.
Like, I mean, at least the way that's where.
No, because it's comparing, and we go through this all the time with water and sewer, it's comparing what the budget was to what the budget is, not it ended up being, because sometimes our assessments change after the fact, you know.
right, and then you have professional services, like for 11 grand, 11.5. Didn't know if that jumped out at you under, forestry and parks.
So basically what most of this is, I try to tell everybody to keep this to zero. In engineering, most of it is related to licensing.
Right, this is parks and forestry.
Yep, so that one, Dennis is getting absolutely crushed on the price of his fertilizers and seeds and different things like that. So they're going way up, so for him to be able to keep pace, he needed to bump up a little bit. He also has another one in supplies, same thing, so he goes into the turf fields every year, and part of the maintenance to them will add rubber to them, because every time somebody falls and sweaty, they track some of it home. He's constantly replenishing that. The price of the, the bags that he buys to be able to do that is just getting more expensive like everything else. He saw a little bit there. I'll just stick to purchase of services still. So in fleet, vehicle fuel is something that used to be kind of an unknown, and even in buildings, so heat and electricity. These are really, we take an average consumption, we look at what the feds are forecasting for a rate on the wholesale end, and we just apply it to it. Fleet came out great, so we don't have any increases there, which we thought we might. The only thing we have is kind of like what I just explained with Dennis. There is an increase in equipment repair, and really it's driven off of, you used to buy an alternator for $200, now it's $450. Price of all that stuff is out of control. Related to buildings, like the fuel, we take an average kilowatt consumption for 3 years. We take an average gas consumption. We look at what the feds are saying the rates are going to be. I have a conversation with the folks at Gas and Light. I kind of feel Pete out to see where he thinks his peak rate might hit, balance it off of that. So this is something in the past couple of years we've seen increases $30,000-$60,000 depending on that, and $4,900. It's close to level funded as that's going to be.
Right.
We're hoping, so Green Communities changed every light in this building to LED. Every light in the Civic Center is going to be LED by the end of next week, and everything in the police station is going to be LED and updated. So hoping that those sorts of projects, all the new HVAC equipment with variable speed pumps and things like that, we'll start to see the kilowatt usage dip. And we targeted those buildings because Town Hall, and Civic Center, and Public Safety are the biggest energy consumers that we have. Backing at that first. So hopefully this line will start to fill out and get a little bit better as we go. In this section too, you'll notice there's a transfer that comes from the Civic Center for some work that was done there. That changed a little bit, and it only changed the offset that Recreation's paying is going to be a little higher, and that's only because some of the projects that were financed there through Bank of America, the payment has increased a little bit, so we're just keeping that on par. I think I included that in the packages I sent out.
Yep.
I sent that amortization schedule for that. So as crazy as it sounds, we actually look to see if we could pay that off early and have a fee for that. So we'll be probably rolling that out till the end, unfortunately.
I don't know if you're gonna talk about the Civic Center. I know you took that over a few years ago. That settled down a little bit, still struggle, quote unquote.
No, I think, we have everything.
And smiling.
We have everything. So we don't manage like day-to-day scheduling and stuff like that. I think one of the pain points that we had that we're really fortunate to get federal dollars for was the roof. That thing was just leaking, and whatever you did to patch it or whatever we were doing just didn't work, and it came to the point where we needed to strip it and redo it. So that is, knock on wood, behind us. So we can focus on some other things. That building is in good shape.
Good.
I think it's real. All the little quirks about taking over and figuring out how everything's going to function is kind of over. Food pantry is nestled in quite nicely. The Boys and Girls Club's fine. Again, we have somebody there pretty much all day long, so it's never, rented with nobody around. There's always a physical presence at it. Bathrooms downstairs, and
Good. I'm all set.
Joe,
go
uh,
ahead.
Johnson Controls contract, is
Yep.
that taking care of the energy efficiency? Are they the one that replacing it under their contract, or what?
So they did all of their replacements when we did the HVAC work and some of the other things. They did work there, and then they did work at the high school back then. So that's doing its thing. The LEDs and everything like that we're putting in there to try to do anything we can should hopefully do that too. So I'm hoping we're going to experience like a slack tide type of deal where, we're going to kind of hover around what our baseline is now. One of the things where we should improve in this line item too, so if the town makes a decision on what they're going to do with their herd, if it gets, sold, repurposed, whatever that might be, we should see some savings there coming up in the future too, that will hopefully knock this down with. And then anything that we could do through Green Communities grants to get, capital assets related to building equipment that's also energy efficient, is what we're looking at now. Again, to try to keep this from, getting to the point where it's not manageable. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Out of curiosity, how many grants do you guys manage in this department?
We're pretty aggressive with applying for everything.
Yeah.
One of the nice things, at least I'll use like the heavy civil side. Yeah, I just included that in there because that's a ton of the stuff. That's not even everything. So that's
Historical, yeah.
Yeah, that's just some of the stuff we're able to come up with now. We've been fortunate. So this group, town council, has supported us pretty huge in the engineering side.
Yeah.
So a lot of the reason we're successful is because if we put in a transportation grant to do road work or Albion Street, it's shovel ready. We just turn the plans over and say, here you are, which bodes well when you get scored for that type of stuff. Green Communities, we got a grant to do the lighting projects that I mentioned as a designation grant. That needs to finish, and then we can start applying for more.
Okay.
But anything that we can get, we're going to take.
For some, I guess, we just kind of go look.
Some of it
You
comes
guys do it internally, yeah.
Some of it comes directly to us. Some of it, we'll get an email from Steve all the time. Is there anything in here? Anything in here for us? And there generally is. So we're always going after it. Things like you'll hear us say complete streets and stuff like that's more cyclical. The state does a good job of getting that out to you, saying the round of funding's coming up. we're able to get, which is convenient, the MWRA says some good things. We're able to get some things for our GIS work, which is basically just, everything used to be on paper and then stored in a file or hung in a cabinet. Now it's all going on. So we're able to get two through the DEP to do some water and sewer work to kind of build up anywhere that we can get anything. And looked in historical type,
well,
you name it.
wrong,
We'll try
for anything.
Even like one time we solicited like Polar, is it Polar Beverage or Coca-Cola was doing like recycling things. We don't care where it comes from,
Right,
you know, as
yeah.
long as it fits what we're doing and it's not something that's controversial.
Sure.
If you want to give us money to do something that we otherwise would have paid tax money or rate money on, we're going to do it in 2 seconds.
Awesome, yeah. I know it's not easy, so.
Yeah, is there an easy way to determine like where those are listed? Like, is there one, like a one-stop shop for all like your type of?
So it's funny you say that. There is a one, they call it a one-stop through the state. And Erin Kokinda's really great at keeping up to speed with that completely, and then she's always feeding us stuff too. It's pretty, almost like sharks in the water. We know if it's out there, we're going to try to attack it. If it makes sense, we're going to.
Also got a bunch of money for.
Yeah, so that saves the ratepayers $2 million. We being able to get that. Again, that's something that we're very aggressive on.
I know it's saw the billboard outside. Yeah, overlay. Do you imagine that there's going to be other like infrastructure costs? I mean, I wouldn't say like explosion, but at least growth within that.
Depending on what it ends up becoming, there could be. At least in your neck of the woods, we already have Cedar Street. We already have pretty much done. The water main will get done there. We know we're doing anyway, regardless of what happens there with that boat. We know we want to do water in your area too. And then, like I said, the next step to that is the giving part of it. Anytime there's any development or anything that happens, like Foundry Street's a good example, like when those buildings went up, it's always something that we look at, the viability of what's out in the street. That's why when I was talking about Nahat Street earlier, I'm a little hesitant to dive right in. Right now, I'd say that probably isn't in the best shape to support some of that work, but that's something that we address with building owners and the property developers as they do their thing, and then occasionally, like Foundry Street, they were actually responsible for upgrading everything within the frontage. They had to go from 7-Eleven to the next cross street there. They had to cover all that. They needed it, and we weren't going to finance this project, so control, you know, the design decisions and stuff like that, and then they would have to
Okay, oh, that's good to know. Okay.
Yeah. That goes into everything. Every permit that comes through that's not, you know, by right thing, it's looked at and already never enough. We don't want to get to that point where we can't keep up with everything else.
Exactly, yeah. That was.
It wouldn't be long for this world if that was the case. I think the only thing I have, so there's a little bit of an increase of $3,000 in cemetery, and all that is we built out, again, we took what we had for maps, and we turned it all digital, so eventually coming up in the spring, you're going to be able to log in and see everything, search for people, and then all of our billing and sales is going to go through it too. So this is just to host that, kind of get that project.
The GIS is like an asset database as well, or will it be?
Exactly. So that's what everything points to. And what that is now, so like we do water main replacement, every single gate, every single water service, sewer service, we actually locate it and put a long lat to it.
Yep.
It used to be, so we used to be able to tell you like somewhere within this room the manhole cover. Now I can tell you it's somewhere within this table. So it's getting down. You can imagine sometimes in the winter when the streets are snow covered, that comes in, you know, big time. And then, you know, it lives in a state that can be, you know, produced in relatively. You don't have to go searching through the dungeon. You know, something that Dennis drew up in 1985 on the Board of Public Works. That's it.
Are you uncovering any like other major issues? I know, like in the past years. previous year? Like pipes going from like, I don't know, 36 inches.
That happens with drainage every once in a while, because I feel like there's water, it's traveling in this path, they just threw pipes in it and buried it for a period of time, and for whatever reason, the record keeping wasn't always awesome, like industry-wide in that regard. But no, not every once in a while, like it's something that'll scratch your head, but nothing that causes us too much angst. A lot of getting all that stuff off paper and into a more readily accessible format is to make sure that we're vetting whatever's out there too. That's the time in it. Just because it says that it's here, we want to make sure that that's actually the case. A lot of due diligence behind that before it becomes something. Every once in a while you get something, but nothing that keeps you up at night. Yeah. That basically covers purchase of services, materials and supplies. I mentioned parks, the rubber, and then just $1,000 for engineering paper stock. Snow and ice, I feel like every year I kind of say we'll level fund it for now, but next year could be different, and things have stayed the
Did I get
same.
like the 11-year average in?
Yeah,
That's,
so the high number you
who was
see.
it, Dennis? Who's the gentleman before you?
Oh, Rick.
Rick.
So the one thing I am very appreciative of is I have a lot of longitudinal data.
That's it.
And really what the high number for me is, we're not proposing that we move that yet. We haven't had to do anything drastically quite some time. But basically what we're saying is based on, what our going rate is and then what our average snowfall is based on how things have gone over the last so many years, it could be this. We haven't had to spend that. At some point in time, we'll probably have to pay the piper. We're being rewarded for the last 5 or 6 years, but we're going to roll with it and see what happens. No sense in making a change now, because who knows? Could be something bigger at play.
But Joe, can you recycle your number to make it on the last, to show global warming increase? Can you just do it on the 10-year average and reduce that 1.9 down to a 1.4 or something?
I can give you, you know what I'll do? When we break, I'll go through the past 22 years, and I can break it out a whole bunch of different ways and show it to you.
I mean, I just think it'll make historically to show it, we are getting closer to where we should be, probably around $1 million, but not the 1.9.
No,
And if
and
we
I think,
it's going to be in an overlay anyway for next year's tax rate, so I'm not too worried about it. It's just to get it more realistic to requested and approved. That's all.
yeah, I think our hesitancy with changing what the ultimate number would be is we haven't had to do an override 5 or 6 years. The labor rate's gotten more expensive. Salt has stayed okay. The thing that we did do on this end, all of our snow and sand routes and everything, redid them and balanced them and optimized them, and we found that we were going to go out and defeat whatever's falling from the sky with just rock salt. It used to take us like 5.5 hours. We could get it done and spend time on it faster. Not to the point where you're not performing well, it's just balance. So see what happens with this. I mean, now
You did get money back on that.
Yep.
yes, and we won't put the cart before the horse, but I think that trend
Could be a trend.
Yeah.
more than likely continue, and we're happy to do that. We'll put it that way.
No March storms now, you said that out loud.
No, and
That'll be the worst March ever.
well, there is still the potential of it now, but
Oh, sure.
luckily the sun angle's high, and Long days, 50 degrees sometimes. You'll never be.
Spring ahead coming soon. My father-in-law, he's 90 years old. He gives me this speech every year in the spring about
Nothing will ever
fire in the
not
sky.
be safe, but
It'll be
sometimes
fine.
you can let Mother Nature help you a little bit. So I think that wraps up the tax end.
Yep.
Good.
I'm good. Anybody else? Questions?
You have
So
one,
I have,
Joe, you still have one opening in-house for clerk that you gotta
Yep.
fill?
yeah, we'll be going through that shortly.
Yeah, so the head count is just one additional, is that what you sort of said?
That's it.
At the end there,
Yeah.
at the beginning? Yep.
Everything else is
Yep.
status quo. Looks like we'll go from 79 budgeted positions to potentially 80.
Oh, do we know what's the chapter 90 money?
Do I have it? I should have it on the top of
Is
that,
it
no?
2024? Sorry,
Yeah, do I have a note, there on that too, that we got an extra 300,000?
Yes,
Yeah,
Okay.
so we got that.
Okay.
There is, we do have another pretty significant one, sitting with Seth Moulton's office, that we're hoping that comes through. It's 7 figures, so that'll all be used for a lot of lakeside stuff.
Wasn't that sitting there last year too?
This one,
No?
I didn't think it was as big as it was, but they just told me it's pretty nice,
Good.
so.
This is federal like appropriation.
We're hoping that we get the,
What appropriation is that associated?
a lot of money. I'd have to look before I can. They had just sent, you mentioned like, how do we know about grants? So their staff or his staff got in touch with all the communities and said there's a bunch of openings. A lot of it's transportation related, so pretty good size one in there. Hopefully it turns into, new sidewalks and amenities. Fingers crossed.
Any other railroad movements or things of that nature?
So we're working through the design piece on that to get the quad gates Broadway and hopefully up here at Prospect Street, which will bring scoring way below the threshold that we need. Some nuances and little different things to that. We actually, our folks in engineering have some help brought on to kind of work through that with us, but we're hoping I'm in the construction season. That will plan. Rip it out and replace it and never going to do that again.
I don't know if you know this, but there's a continuous rail project that MDTA was doing.
Is that some of the upgrades that they did, like in the stretch along Tuttle Street there, and
I can't remember where it's impacted. I thought they were going to bring it all. Essentially welding the tracks together so that's just one to reduce the clickety that you hear.
I didn't know the specifics of that. I know they did a lot of work in Greenwood. They did some signal stuff, and I'm assuming they probably did continuous rail work. Obviously, if you've gone through Prospect Street in the last 6 months, they've done a lot of signal cabling or whatever they got going on there. See Dago Electric there almost every day. Not 100% sure on that one. If I hear anything, I'll be. I have sewer in front of me first, so I'll just run through that. So the first one, usually the big one, is our assessment through the MWRA. So this is one of those areas where we're comparing it in this document, budget to budget. This will change. So the budget compares it budget to budget. The number that I'm giving you is a little bit different from that, but year over year, our assessment in sewer is actually down. That is a nice thing we have going for us. So the overall increase with that, again, subject to change a little bit, depending on what I get for that GIC number, but right now, MWRA included we're presenting that budget to go up about 1.3%. If you take the MWRA out of the equation, we're at less than 0.5% related to this. Much like tax, contractual services, things like that, overtime adjustments related to that. We don't have any new debt on the books in sewer. Materials and supplies is level funded. The only thing that we're adding in sewer, the purchase of services is applying for $25,000. Purchased a vac truck, and one of the things with that is it will fit in one of our garages, not the other one, and the complexity of that machine, we need a little bit of outside help to make sure that we're working on that really to service the way we need to. From a safety standpoint and a productivity standpoint, this thing will be amazing. It'll replace the need to put bodies down in holes when they're wet, gross. Excited to hopefully get that. Like I said, we are weighted for the whatever the changes in the admin expense, and then whatever group insurance might be. I don't think that's going to be anything too dramatic. As I get that, which could be today, it could be Monday. Does anybody have anything on the sewer end, or you want me to just jump into water?
So for MWRA,
yep.
I know it is going down a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I guess what's the potential for it going up a lot of it?
There's a couple things at play with that one. So the MWRA redid all of their meters in the sewer system. So we benefited from that because we're getting a more accurate read from them. The other thing is, probably heard me in the past talk about inflow and infiltration. Basically what that is gaps in pipes. They'll allow groundwater in that didn't go through the drain, and we end up paying for it because it goes and gets treated. They've had 14 different rounds of that funding, and we've used every single one, and we're right at the end. Great news is they're going to extend that. They added an extra $1 million interest-free loan if you choose to take that. They've also added another one, which is you get the $1 million worth of work, but the payback is $250. That looks like that's going to keep going, and we're going to keep doing that. We achieve two things. We get out all those extraneous flows, and the other thing we can do is we can structurally align the pipe from the inside, so we don't have to dig the road up, which is fantastic because we can do it over the winter and it speeds things up. That's two of the things there. There's always the potential for it to go up. Their formula that they use for this is a little wonky. It's not just flow. Use something like the strength of flow. So if you're a place that does a lot of like galvanizing or different material manufacturing, we have like caustic, hazardous, super, whether they be basic or alkalinic, fluids going through it, that piece to it. The amount of solids that go through it, there's a proportion to that, and then they basically have this formula where like there's always the potential for it to go up. I feel like right now we're managing it probably where we expect. We don't see anything, barring something that is completely unforeseen. We don't have anything lurking out there like we know we have coming in the future that's
it went up substantially, in previous years. Is that due to changes at MWRA relative to their cost needs or equations, or do you have any recollection?
So one of the
sometimes it was like 10, 9, 11.
Yeah, so one of the things that they'll do is their assessments to the communities is a combination of their operating expense and then what they're planning to do on capital. So depending on what they got going on capital, that can always fluctuate. Yeah. In the pandemic, they ended up slashing that pretty aggressively. And I don't think that they have completely ramped that all the way up. They've kind of, every year when they do their budget stuff, they want to say they're not going to go any more than 4. Fine, they don't want the rate increases to the community. Have to. We control a little bit of our own destiny depending on what we use and what we send to them. But from their standpoint, that's what they're trying to hit, and they've been pretty good about holding true to that.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that they had reduced during the pandemic. Was that the capital portion?
They basically deferred a bunch of capital because they knew at the time that the community that cost is bigger. Everybody's trying to figure out what is normal now. They looked at, and I would imagine it not being in the meeting, but they took what is necessity and carried it forward, and anything that,
Good for us.
yeah, it actually ended up saving us, $250,000, I think, at the time, so
Sure.
we'll take that any day.
Yeah.
Obviously, this is self-funded.
Yep.
Soil, water is self-funded for the,
Self-funded, retained earnings, we call them retained earnings, same things like free cash.
where's the report for that?
I can give you that. I have the balance sheet that, Kevin got from DOR.
Yeah, if you send it to us, I'll send it with the group.
So we try to mimic, what the town's doing, so we'd like that number available to be somewhere between 8 and 10%. Now I think certified last year, in sewer around 950, and then water was 1.1. Right where we need to be with that. Doing work, which is great. We're not bringing anything we don't need.
Yeah.
Operationally, too crazy coming, all that we're experiencing. Pretty happy with where we are there.
So just for clarification, so the self-funded that it's with the water and sewer bill, so.
Yep, so there's that, a couple other things, a piece of property is on a read. Connections someone might make, if you're building a new building, you connect into the street, water, fee, application fee to that, so that, all encompassing. So. Let's see, on the water end, a lot of this mimics the same thing. So our MWRA assessment, water end is decreasing this year. This budget does have baked into it in the debt line, the $5 million borrowing that we talked about. That's why the increase here is a little bit higher than what you see in sewer. Right now, again, without the admin expense and what the GIC impact to this is, the increase is about 3.13%. You take the MWRA out of it, the benefit we got from that reducing, we're at 3.5%. All the personal services stuff is basically the same. The only thing that changed here in purchase of services, we had an unclassified line that we overspent every year. We brought that up to what we're spending. As far as the debt is concerned, so we got an estimate from the town's bond council, Hilltop. They showed for fiscal 25, our payment will be $176.61. That's a conservative estimate on their part. That is something that hopefully when the bonds at the market could change. And then in year 2, this number will tick up a little bit, the full payment. So this represents about 60. Should look like the interest ticks down. It's just subject to change. But as that becomes available to us in the spring when we hit the market, we'll again, self-funded, pretty much the exact same thing as
Yeah, and on the salaries, the highest increase is 8.6, water and sewer group.
Yeah, so what ended up happening there, that group reclassified, and there were a couple of things that changed in collective bargaining related to how they were handling longevity. One of the things that we have here, I'm sure it's probably similar in other departments, so I can't speak to it. A lot of our supervisors have been here for 15, 20, 25 years. Been here for a while.
Yeah, 93.
So anytime you factor in anything related to like a longevity or salary scale changes or moves, they've been around long enough and they're seated at the the top part of the pyramid, so a little bit differently for them than it might for someone that's been here for.
Then at the schools, subcommittee at the schools and the meeting, we talked a lot about back charging appropriately. You see it in your spreadsheet. You guys, meaning staff, back charge to the enterprise accounts appropriately. We're comfortable with that. Do they absorb a portion of benefits Meaning, so your benefits, does the enterprise pay a portion of your benefits?
They do. So, related to, myself and the town engineer are split, into thirds.
Right.
So a third of me, a third of
Yep,
him,
yep.
goes tax, water, sewer.
Yep.
And then, the engineers are split, and then admin split. There's a small, tiny split, with buildings and fleet. It's just based off, 100% of our fleet, 20% of it's water. They factor that in on a macro scale. Yeah, there is some of that, but no, I feel like all that's appropriate. None of it's really changed, at least since I've inherited it, so.
Go.
Hold
Go
on,
with-
Dennis.
So as
Hold
far
on
as,
one second.
I know since we moved to like the tiered water usage rates, I think one of the questions that was asked maybe a couple of years ago, was, it might have been Doug Butler who, in terms of like how those rates were set and whether or not like those rates are actual, like the outcome of those rates or implementing those.
So
Is any,
the tough part of that question is, so when that whole thing started, I was new, at least to this seat. Bill was new, Ann was new. So we did two things. We redid our capital plan. So water consultant that we work with on some of the higher level technical things, like they design the water tank for us because we don't build those. We build them. So we bring somebody in that does it all the time. So we kind of did that. We developed our methodology for how we're going to attack things out in the road. And the other thing we did was rate study. So we brought in a group called the Abrahams Group, who actually we learned at the time invented the way that code bills and do municipal accounting, so that was pretty cool. But they came in and basically we turned all of our books over to them and audited everything. Here's the goals and objectives we want to do. We look at it all the time, tell us what you think, and let's work on something with the advisory. One of the things that we found out, it's both state law and written into our MWRA agreement, is that we have to have that's the resource demand of the water, but you can't have a declining block. You'll slowly see anybody that might not be doing that is changing, just changes it. Related to the conservation piece, it's tough to calc out because of the way that Wakefield's growing right now. So 8,000 homes, but some of the things that are coming on now, so like Boundary Street's new after that. So you added 400 bedrooms to that, 200Q will add another couple hundred bedrooms. So our baseline's changing, and we don't know exactly where we're going to land. I'll tell you that last year, the way that the weather and everything was, we're actually down in consumption. People weren't outside. It rained every day. We were living
Didn't need to water my lawn.
Right.
No, exactly. So it's a little bit tough to completely nail down. So once we can get comfortable with it, and it's not just based broadcasted out there. But now we think that that's affecting it the right way, but then we keep on adding on these new buildings all the time. So now we went from 25,000 people or 8,000 customers now. We have 8,001 customers, but that next new customer is a massive customer that equals 40 homes. So
Dennis.
yeah.
You're up. Yep.
Pumping overtime. You only got the one pumping operator. I thought we were still looking to get a second.
So I have two. The supervisor can pump, our treatment plant operator can pump, and a third employee just took his test. So I should have three, I hope.
Simple water.
I don't like seeing a supervisor doing regular people's work, so that's why I'm.
No, and he won't. If he has to, really. So let's say the primary operator that's in there has to run out of the building for a minute, then Steve would go over there and basically man the ship. But that's not his primary seat's not in there by a long stretch. But it's nice if you're in a pinch, he can take the wheel and has all the credentials he needs to be in there and make.
Well, he was supposed to have them anyway, but I'm just saying the big push was so we can pump at night and, save our MWA costs. And, I want to make sure that we continue to do that.
Absolutely.
Okay, so you think Spindler is gonna pass the test? Is that who it is?
No, it's actually, another employee, listed in that, but I believe so. That's his wheelhouse, is the chemistry and all that, so it should be
Okay,
a nice and smooth experience.
and you're looking for one equipment operator there too, right?
Yes, yep.
Thank you.
Very good. Anything else?
Nope,
Is that it, Joe?
That's all I got. Sorry, I know. I can keep going on and on and on for this stuff. Try to keep it as bare bones as we can. And then, like I said in the warrant article regard, we have a ton going on. We're very fortunate in that regard.
Any other questions?
Do you see the Public Works, division decreasing its, like, natural, right, as part of this,
Probably. One of the things that we have going on, so we don't have any buildings in town that are heated by oil, with the exception of the fuel school. And that is responsible to Steam Collaborative, who rents the building out from the school department, so that's their thing. Everything else is either natural gas or electric. As time goes on, you'll probably see, at least now, trend is for things to not be natural gas and move to the electric side. So you'll probably see that as time goes on with something that will slowly erode away. I don't think we have anything in the queue that's dramatically different, other than maybe. Certainly, as things come on, if we can explore the solar option, and that too, and then if you can marry that up with, electricity plus solar energy on the roof, that benefit to that is pretty. At some point in time, I'm sure that will start to take. Everything will eventually head that way.
There are questions, and there may be in another way, I don't. Vehicle. Are there charging stations in town?
There are. There's a few of them. There's some at the Civic Center. There's a couple in the parking lot. Baybank, it's not Baybank, but in front of the in front of the farm. I've been around too long.
You must have been a pretty young guy when Baybank was there.
Throwback in front of the farmland. You want me to talk about the Shawmut Bank next? There's those. There's some at the head of the lake. So those are something that'll pop up more and more.
Is that a lease that we do with the company, or are we?
So the ones.
So the ones down at Bettsfield, we use a company called ChargePoint, and so if people use it, then the revenue comes into the treasurer's office. Yeah.
I mean, it's minimal revenue. I think once
It's
you
very-
balance off what you're
very-
paying for it, but
Very
yeah.
minimal, but the usage has been up.
Yeah.
So
The amenities are out there, and depending on, for something like that, all it really is once it gets communicated to us that there's a need of some sort, we have the means to do it. Yeah. Folks have been great with that. They installed maybe the initial capital cost. It'll be something that comes. I know every new building that comes.
What about vehicles? Do you see a large dump truck going to be battery operated someday? I read things that there's still quite a struggle.
So the one thing with like the Class 8 stuff, the heavy stuff, is I don't know if the batteries are there.
Yeah.
It's either Chicago or New York tested it in their trash trucks, and what they found is that they get like 2 hours out of it, and then they have to recharge.
Yeah.
For some of the smaller stuff, it makes sense. The problem with that is like when it's snowing out, we used to get, substantial like blizzard conditions. Turn the vehicle on at 7 o'clock in the morning, it's basically running for 20, 30 hours.
That's right.
Straight through. the battery piece isn't there yet. I'm sure at some point in time,
Yeah.
whether it's battery or hydrogen is another option. I know they're
You're
looking
just not
at.
getting, solicitations to buy them at this point. It's just not, the market,
On the big heavy stuff, I don't think anybody really gets it.
no, nobody's.
If you're the city of Cambridge, like, they're very progressive in that world. I know they procured a bunch of trash trucks and stuff like that. But even that, you know, was a stretch, and it's not like you can just go and buy one. You can't go and buy any of that stuff.
Yeah.
So there's some time. I know that they're trying to work the kinks and bugs out of that,
Yep.
but, slowly but surely, at least on like the mid-range, the smaller stuff, we really don't run anything that's diesel fuel anymore. In the componentry that's on it and the complexity of fixing all the electrical stuff with them, it's not worth it. So unless it's, you know, one of the large scale things or something that needs to use hydraulic power to move earth.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I was just curious.
Anybody like, our engineers are a great example. When they're up for vehicles, they could probably get electric. Future will be interesting.
Work at a hospital, and one of the initiatives is ambulances. We have an ambulance.
Stop picking me up.
That's what I, like, it's an initiative someone put out there. We're like, okay, so it's a difficult conversation, right? Because there are a lot of people who are really invested in
Well, there's a strong
moving that way.
desire to do it.
Just, you know, what you're carrying on as equipment on the vehicle, plus the vehicle, plus
Sure. I think
the
for us,
conversation.
it's just how fast you can regenerate that power source.
Sure,
Correct.
If you told me you could, 15 minutes to charge yourself back up and ready to go,
right.
now you're in business, you
Sure.
know. Something that size, I gotta imagine. I don't know how long it would take to charge a full-fledged dump truck, but
No.
Right.
Very good. Anybody else? Good? Great, thanks for meeting with us.
Yeah.
thanks. So when I get
Alright.
the extra stuff from Kevin,
Yep.
I'll send that out, and then I basically read the summation you talked about, but you'll get that too.
Great.
So hopefully I have that
And we're meeting, I think, the next meeting?
12th, 13th,
14th, I think, yeah.
Yeah, that's our next, good.
So we'll be at that one. I think we're doing the warrant articles the same night.
Yep.
And I'll be back with the capital planning
Capital later.
committee after the fact.
Yep. Good.
From there.
Thanks for coming, everybody.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Dennis.
Okay, we'll see you guys.